Hello guys, it's me Simo Orahara, and in this video I'll explain to some fans the mechanism of Zaraki's power, so that you will come out of this video knowing why all of Zaraki's battles ended in the way you watch it. Why did Zaraki kill 3 generators at once and suddenly was defeated by Roy? And why Zaraki couldn't defeat Ichigo, who was just fighting with Shikai, and after that Zaraki was able to defeat Tosen and stand against Kumamura? Is it an imbalance of power from Kubo or what? Honestly, if you only watched the anime, it might seem like this to you. You might think that Zaraki's power has no plot. But let me tell you something guys. There were few people who were able to work out the mechanism of Zaraki's power before Kubo even revealed how Zaraki's power works in the final arc. And one of these people was Hyugo Narita, the owner of the famous works Durarara and Bakano, and he also the one who made Spirits Are Forever With You and Can't Feel Your Own World novel. Narita is a fan of Bleach and used to read the Bleach manga weekly, and one of his favorite characters is Don Kaonji. So when he got the opportunity from Shueisha to make his first novel for Bleach, he suggested to Kubo several ideas, including the use of Don Kaonji as a main character in the novel Spirits Are Forever With You. But this is not the subject of our video. The novel was merely centered around Zaraki Kinpachi and the 8th Kinpachi Asashiro Soya. The novel was released in the summer of 2012, and this approximately during the release of Ichigo's fight against Kilgi OP as a manga. Of course, this was the official release, which means he probably was making a script for the novel before even the beginning of the final arc. Therefore, Narita, to prepare the events of the novel, he read the manga from the first chapter to the end, and he watched everything reach to Bleach, the anime, the movies, everything. And so, through this comprehensive reading, he was able to deduce the secret of Zaraki's power. And during his writing of Zaraki and Asashiro Soya's fight, he explained Zaraki's power and why Zaraki was defeated by Ichigo and why Zaraki would defeat Asashiro Soya. And this is what made Kubo specialist, because he didn't give anything to Narita about how he should write the fight of Zaraki and Asashiro Soya, and yet Narita could manage to know the secret of Zaraki's power. And so Narita's explanation of Zaraki's power is almost the same as what Kubo was preparing to reveal in the final arc. Kubo said that he could hardly believe that Narita had discovered one of the biggest secrets that Kubo was hiding and wanted to reveal at the end of the manga. Thus, this is evidence that some people can understand how Zaraki fights in battle. So, how Zaraki's power works? The first thing to understand is that Zaraki and Ichigo are two sides of the same coin when we talk about the power of each one of them. For example, Zaraki from a young age, when he was a boy wandering around in the Rekongai, had a great power, and let's put it at the level of 100%. And we can say the same thing for Ichigo. When he awakened his powers as a Shinigami for the first time, he had almost the same number. But what happened to both of them? When Zaraki met Onohana for the first time, let's say she was at 80% as a power. That's why when he fought her, he found her the closest person who would make him enjoy the fight. And so instinctively, and fearing that she would die in battle if he fought her with his full power, which is 100%, he reduced his power to 80% in order to equalize with Onohana and enjoy the fight. And that was the biggest mistake he made, and that's what Onohana later considered to be her sin, because it automatically caused Zaraki to lower his power to that level and put seals on his power so that he wouldn't go up to a higher level. So Zaraki's instinct worked hard to make him enjoy fighting, enjoy what he wanted so bad, even if that means lower his monster's power. The same thing happened with Ichigo, but with a different method. Ichigo wasn't fighting with his full power because the Osan Zangetsu was suppressing his power, which made him fight with just a part of that power throughout the story. And he was raising some of that power just when Ichigo was in a big trouble. And what happened to Zaraki after the end of his first fight with Onohana is that when Zaraki's power dropped to 80%, during his fight with her, he remained at that level of power, and worse than that, its power began to gradually decrease with every fight he was engaged in. For example, when he started looking again for someone to fight, he found a person with a power, let's say, level of 60%. And as we said previously, Zaraki had 80%, but because he found someone close to him in power which will make him enjoy fighting, Zaraki again instinctively reduces his strength or his power to 60 or a little more, and with every power reduction a seal is placed on Zaraki's power, and it continued like that until we have seen the version of Zaraki the Soul Society. His power has become at certain level, and let's say like 30% of his total power, and the rest, which is 70%, was sealed on several levels. Okay, so here we explained how Zaraki power was decreasing, but there was also something strange that was happening with Zaraki, and Onohana also noticed it. And it is the following: Zaraki was decreasing his power when his opponent is weaker than him. But what if his opponent is stronger than him? What's gonna happen? Here again, I'll have to use another example to explain. If we assume that Zaraki the Soul Society had a level of power 30%, and at that time he faced an opponent with a level of power of 40%, what's gonna happen? Well, if the opponent fights Zaraki without bringing him to the brink of death, or he fights him with a kind of laxity, Zaraki will remove one of the seals that is previously placed on his power, and he will reach the level that will enable him to fight his opponent equally, to enjoy fighting and maybe surpass him a little bit and beat him. And we've seen this, the eye patch that Zaraki uses on his eye is also playing the same role as the seals on his spiritual power, meaning Zaraki will raise his strength level to 40 or 50 in order to fight his opponent for a certain period of time and then defeat him. But this process will work only if the opponent doesn't raise suddenly his power. Why? Because that's exactly what happened in Zaraki and Ichigo's fight. Zaraki was at 30% of his power, and Ichigo was almost in that level power because, as we said, his power was suppressed by the Osan Zangetsu. But when Ichigo was stopped by Zaraki, the Osan brought him to his inner world and trained him to use Shikai with white. And so Ichigo's power moved from a level that was under or equal to power of Zaraki to a level of 40% due to his training with white. But Ichigo didn't attack Zaraki directly with a serious attack, he just entered to some clashes with him, which gave Zaraki's instinct a short time to remove one of the seals and raise the power of Zaraki to a higher level. However, that wasn't enough, because Ichigo has the Osan Zangetsu with him. The Osan Zangetsu is the one who was controlling the power of Ichigo. That's why in the final attack of Ichigo, you can see the shape of Ichigo's Ryatsu has taken the form of white, which means that the Osan Zangetsu at that particular moment, he boosted the power of Ichigo even more to another level, to the point that Zaraki's instinct couldn't raise the power of Zaraki to another level in that short time. And therefore the fight, as we have seen, ended with Ichigo's hard-fought victory after the Osan intervened and raised Ichigo's power in the midst of the battle. And as Onohana said, every time Zaraki faces a strong enemy that leads him to the edge of death, one of the seals that are on Zaraki's power is removed, which makes him stronger than the previous state he was in. And that's what Onohana was doing in her fight in the Mugen with him. She fights him, makes him reach the edge of death, and then heals him and makes him back with a seal removed, and so on until he became without any seals on his power. And that's why Zaraki was defeated against Ichigo, because of the imbalance of power that occurred during that fight. But in return, Zaraki had one of the seals removed and his power increased, and so he was able to fight two captains at once without any problem. His power has become stronger than before because of Ichigo's fight, so that we might say that Zaraki's power has become 45% at that time. The same thing with Noitora. When Zaraki almost died, he used Kendo and his power increased again, and that's what happened with Zaraki in his fight against the 8th Kenpachi. At the beginning of the first fight between them, the level of power leaned towards Azuro Soya greatly, But Azusero Soya made a grave mistake, which is that he was fighting Zaraki without seriousness, and he left him alone, and thus opened the way for Zaraki to raise his power, especially when he fought Thien. Zaraki's power increased greatly because Thien was a real challenge to Zaraki, and therefore when Azusero Soya wanted to fight Zaraki again with all his power, using the Seta Yogo technique or Kido like Itokatsu, it couldn't work anymore against Zaraki because this latter, his power has increased to a higher level. Of course, the events of that novel remain specific to the novel, but what narrator presented regarding the mechanism of Zaraki's power is the same as what Kubo was planning, and Kubo explained it more clearly in the final arc. For example, when Lloyd fought Zaraki, Lloyd copied Zaraki's power that he had at that moment. And notice with me what Zaraki said. My opponent was strong, so all I had to do was raise my power level. So here another question. How can you defeat Zaraki? In order to do that, you must fulfill two conditions. First of all, you must be stronger than Zaraki. And secondly, you must never play with Zaraki. So you shouldn't let him have any chance of raising his power. And this is what happened with Ichigo, and I have already talked about it. And this is also what happened with Roid. Roid was strong. He faced Yamamoto Shikai with his bare arms, and as you have seen, he has a crazy mobility, blood vein, crosses, and strong abilities. So all these things made Roid at level of power between 60 to 70%. So when Zaraki came to Roid, this latter didn't play with him, and as he said, he knew that Zaraki is one of the 5 threats, and you can't know what Zaraki could do if you let him fight longer time. That's why Roid used all his brutal force to defeat Zaraki. We don't know how he exactly did it, but what I'm sure of is that Roid maybe used 2 techniques with some taijutsu moves that made Zaraki lose his consciousness. Roid wasn't like his brother Lloyd, who was at level equal to Zaraki's power, or he was like Ichigo, who was at the beginning fighting with less power, then he got more power. Or for example, he was stronger like Azusero Soya, but he was fighting without seriousness. No, Roid was something else. That's why Zaraki's defeat against Roid is nothing but the result of several factors that accumulated on Zaraki's power, which made the mechanism of his power completely different from the rest of the other characters' power. The only one that looks like him is Ichigo, like what I have said in the beginning of this video. So guys, what do you think about the power of Zaraki? I hope you enjoyed watching the video and some of you understand how Zaraki powers works. So see you guys in my next video.